Jake, thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to get this out to the people that follow me. I just want to start with I'm going to kind of let you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you're located, and what you do.
Awesome. Thanks for having me first. My name is Jake, as you said, last name's Duncan. We have a functional medicine practice in Keller, Texas, which is North Fort Worth, north of downtown, maybe 10 miles or so. Um, my background is as a physician assistant, trained in conventional medicine, who grew a desire pretty quickly in my short stint in my PA career for natural medicine, for things outside of the conventional treat a symptom approach with a medication. And so that's just grown, and it's kind of blossomed into starting a business that's focused on finding the root cause of symptoms instead of just treating them with a medication.
So that really kind of leads me into one of the questions I was going to ask you, because what we were going to talk about is, what, why did you open your practice? Where did you, obviously you saw a need, there was a pain point there. And at some point when you were in traditional medicine, you kind of shook your head and said, this is a square peg round hole. There's not a fit here for me anymore. And then you decided to open your practice. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So the personal side of it is just my wife and I weren't feeling well. We were in our late 20s. I was almost 30 and just didn't feel well. And so medicine, we tried a few things here and there. I saw some gastroenterologists that, trying to see what these gut symptoms were coming from. And so just never really got any relief, kind of got frustrated with that system. One day we decided to try like a 3 or 4 week kind of a clean diet, just to see if taking a few things out of our diet made any type of difference. And it was night and day. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was so unbelievable that I was angry at my training quickly. And I know that, I had to put things back in perspective and not throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm trained in pharmaceuticals, therefore I'm not trained in nutrition. I wasn't trained in nutrition. And so we had to go back and realize what we did know and what we didn't know. And so we saw that we desired that type of practitioner. I started trying to become that type of practitioner within the realm of a conventional medicine setting. And it just doesn't fit. Like it's very much, it's hard to do that within the insurance model, just because it takes time, and insurance doesn't typically reimburse for time. And so if I'm going to see 3 patients a day, I'm not going to be able to sustain a business if I'm waiting for insurance to try to pay us back for that. So there has to be a somewhat of a outside of that realm. We can still get a lot of things through insurance, but as far as time and keeping the business running, we have to do some of that outside of that model. But there was a need for us. There's a need in this area. There's not a lot of, so we quickly discovered in that journey that there's a lot of flavors of alternative medicine. So there's across the board, and they all have their strengths. They all potentially have some weaknesses. There's no one size fits all for anybody. And so we quickly found that our favorite approach falls under the philosophy of functional medicine. And functional medicine just is actually looking for dysfunction within the body. We're using lab testing to discover what and where dysfunction may be occurring and why. So we're looking for chronic infections. We're looking for hormonal imbalances. We're looking for nutrient deficiencies. And we're trying to address those specifically for each person, because it's going to be different for every single person that walks in the door. I may have a B12 deficiency. Somebody else may have a B6 deficiency, and that shows itself in a ton of different ways: neurotransmitter production, hormone metabolism. So the symptoms that come from that could be anything. And so basically, we really fell in love with this approach that's kind of under the umbrella of functional medicine, which basically is, we're not anti-medications by any means. There's a time and a place, but it's usually not the first thing that should be gone to. Nutrition and diet should be first, and lifestyle, the way that we take care of our bodies. Are we giving our bodies enough rest? Are we moving our bodies enough? Sometimes we're moving our bodies too much. Some people need to slow down. Some people need to speed up. How do we think about life, stress, traffic, situations, relationships. Those things can make us sick faster than almost anything else can. And so it's very much a holistic approach. And then we apply nutraceuticals a lot of times. So we apply supplements, occasionally pharmaceuticals. There's only probably a handful of medicines that I will use. Most of them I think will disrupt or force a pathway so much that it causes more harm than it's causing good. And so I know most medications I don't use, but again, there are a few I do. And so we saw a need in this area is not void in alternative medicine practitioners. There's plenty of that, but it's void in functional medicine to the way that we wanted to practice it. So it's been a good location. DFW is in a growth. It's in a growing spurt right now of awareness of their need for not just waiting on the next medication to fix a symptom, but to be more proactive. And so people are finding you, they're finding me because either they don't feel good now, or they don't want to wait till they start to feel bad, and they don't want to just wait for their genetics to catch up with them and have a heart attack like everybody else in their family has, or cancer that runs in families. They don't want to just wait around. They want to see if there's things they can do to be proactive. So I love that trend is just going in a good direction in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yeah, I've seen that trend become more holistic and integrative over the past couple of years. And I like what you said, because you're able to take a comprehensive approach. So not only do you have what we'll call a traditional medical background, but then you also have more of a wellness, kind of the inside out integrative approach, functional medicine approach to what you do. This may be a little bit of a hard of a question to ask. It's going to be our answer. It's going to be a two part. One is you hear a lot of things lately, and what I don't want people to get confused about is you hear this concept of holistic medicine. Then you hear this concept of integrative medicine. And then you have this concept of functional medicine. And then also over here you have this fourth thing called a concierge doctor.
Right.
So you've got all these words that, that people have to listen to. How do you assimilate that? So can you kind of explain how you either bring all that together, or if you don't, then kind of explain how you differentiate that so the people listening can understand what makes you different?
Right. Good question. Really good question. And that is difficult. And it is kind of difficult to even explain that to a degree. But so concierge medicine kind of burst out of, a doctor walks into his waiting room and realizes that everybody's really not happy with this whole process. And he walks out and he sees people and says, what would y'all like, better? What if y'all could just pay me for my time, what could we do better? And of course, the things they say are less wait time. You got the basic things. You come to my house and see me, everything's about convenience. But in that process, what they didn't know was even on the menu to ask for was a deeper approach, proactive versus reactive. Like they're just thinking about convenience. When you get into kind of just the basics of concierge medicine, is just make it more convenient for me. When you're looking at alternative or holistic type medicine, again, you kind of have a lot of different practitioners, and within integrative and functional medicine have a lot of similarities. So you're still looking at a lot of lab-based things. Then there's some things kind of outside of that realm a little bit, outside of the functional medicine realm, that would be more based on things like applied kinesiology, where you're doing muscle testing, and some of those things can be very, very helpful, but less about labs and objective things, more. And again, muscle testing, it can be objective depending on who's doing that and the degree of the practitioner, how experienced, how well trained they are. Those can be very helpful things. But functional medicine likes to stay within a pretty tight reign of let's rely on the labs to guide us, because by nature, and just because the body's complexity, we're going to guess wrong a lot, because symptoms can be coming from anywhere, and they can be coming from multiple places. So even if you guess right on two of the places that your fatigue is coming from and you feel a little bit better, but there's 4 more areas, then you're not going to ever really reach a place where you feel great. And so it's nice to get these labs done, lay them out on the table and have a whole bunch of puzzle pieces and go, okay, this is probably why we're feeling this way. And let's address these in a very not necessarily intuitive, but a very systematic way, so that we make sure that your body can handle this process. Because we can't just, for example, if there's a kind of a chronic infection that's been hanging out in the gut for years, it's not causing a ton of inflammation that we need to address right away. But if we try to just kill that infection right now while your immune system's compromised, we probably won't win that fight. A lot of times we have to beef up the immune system for several months, and then we go after this infection and wipe it out, depending on the infection. Some infections are a little more urgent, but that's kind of when it gets a little bit, that's when the labs are really, really handy. So we're not just guessing on symptoms. And so when you see the term functional medicine, you know that there's going to be labs involved in that, and less of the, of course, we still want to look at signs and symptoms. We want to look at the body. What's the body telling us? But we're really trying to take as much of the guessing out of the process as possible. So.
Okay. And you mentioned, because you kind of got tired of being kind of under an insurance umbrella. Do you take insurance at all?
So we run all of the labs pretty much through insurance. Our whole big lab panel, that kind of a foundational thing, is run through insurance. Usually that's not going to be anything out of pocket for the patient, other than typically paying the traveling phlebotomist to come to their house and draw the labs. And then the deeper functional labs, where we're looking at nutrient deficiencies and detox issues, those a lot of times will get a significant break from the lab with they run it through insurance. So a lot of savings can happen. The actual consults, those kind of have to be on their own outside of insurance. Like, we can't bill insurance for those. So we work with people, we have kind of family plans. And if another family member comes in, which is kind of happening a lot more lately just because we're getting going. So a family member's 6 months, a year into this, and they're starting to feel really good, and they want to bring family members in, and we're trying, and again, this is all just learning curve as we go, but how to make that as affordable as possible. So we make plans for families to try to make that affordable too. So though it kind of has to be somewhat outside of insurance and out of pocket, insurance still makes a huge difference. Somebody who doesn't have insurance ends up typically having to do quite a bit more out of pocket. And again, we still have some ways to help that as well, with, instead of them paying for a lab directly through the lab, they do clinic bill. So they pay us, and basically we give them our price for it. So we don't make any money on the lab. It gets the price down sometimes, $50, $100 on the lab. So there's ways to make it and to get it into where it fits into most people's budgets, if they can, sometimes give or take a few things here and there.
Okay. Sounds like that you kind of have a little bit of the best of both worlds.
Trying to blend that in as much as possible. Yeah.
So this question, I know what you're going to say, but I want the people that are going to listen to this to find some commonality, and I want them to know that they're not alone. But most of my clients are busy moms, and they hire us because they want to start somehow to take better care of themselves, better care of their families. I'm sure you work with a lot of the population that comes to see you. Most likely, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, are probably more female and moms, busy for one reason or another. Right. And since we work with the same population, I hear the same complaints, or the same, they say the same words in this particular population is the reason they come to me. There's some common symptoms that I see in this group. So, and I just want people to know that they're not alone. So could you tell me what you see in some of the common, not necessarily diagnoses, because we're going to kind of talk about that, or approaches, but what are some of the same things that you hear over and over again? Yeah,
great question. And it's people don't come to me asking to find the underlying causes. They're telling me the symptom they have, and can you help me fix it? And so the symptoms that are daily, extreme fatigue and brain fog, and those go hand in hand. I mean, that is super common. And in the young population where it shouldn't be. I mean, you expect when you're 90 plus years old to get a little brain fog and, forgetfulness, but when you're in your 20s and 30s and you're already forgetting everything, then that's concerning to people. And so fatigue and brain fog, we see a lot of gut symptoms, a lot of digestive symptoms. We see a whole lot of anxiety, panic attacks, and then a common complaint from the female population is around metabolism and weight. And the reason why I think this is such a common thread is because that group of people is under a tremendous amount of pressure and a lot, sometimes self-induced stress. So sometimes they're expecting to be all things to all people when they're in a season of their life where their mom, this is a big part of their life is their mom, but they're also having to work. And so that they have expectations of, especially when they're splitting that and they're doing mom part-time and full-time job, is that they sometimes put a lot of pressure on themselves that they're not doing either one great. So they cause this, there's this daily expectation that's not being met, which causes an internal physiological response, and the body will start to be in, no better way to put it, survival mode. It will go into this, it'll conserve, it will slow down the thyroid, it will decrease nutrient uptake. A lot of things will happen in that, and it will slow metabolism down. It'll cause the brain to get foggy over time. And so that particular group of people, it's a very common thread of symptoms, and they come in sometimes saying, can you check my thyroid? Because it and sometimes it is the thyroid, but rarely it's just the thyroid that's causing the fatigue, the brain fog, the weight gain, the constipation, or sometimes the anxiety. That can be a combination of a lot of things. Sometimes it is a relatively common thing. See a thyroid issue, a Hashimoto's issue, and there's an autoimmune process that's triggered. Sometimes pregnancy, or actually the birthing process, is a common trigger for autoimmune disease. And so a lot of times there's an autoimmune process that's been triggered. And so that's caused this constellation of symptoms. And it has to be approached first from food. That has to be kind of the first thing, because sometimes food can be the driver of fueling the fire, basically. And so until you get that calmed down, anything else you do on top of that's not going to get very far. So the diet and the nutrition has to be foundational, and the mindset has to be foundational, and kind of rethinking the expectations that we in our society puts on ourselves, sometimes unknowingly, that we're driving this process with thinking that we're supposed to be Superman or Superwoman, and it's just not. It's not real life, and it makes us stressed.
I'm glad that you said, about, because one of my questions was going to be about, where does the food you eat, the actual food that you consume, put in your mouth? And I do want to ask you a question about that. But what I really see is that because of the amount of stress, the highs, the lows, that a lot of these, and we're just going to say women for now, because that's kind of the population we're talking
Right.
are under, there's only so much of those hormones that can be dumped into your body until you just deplete them. And then
Right.
other systems have to take over, and then those systems are depleted.
Right.
I think that so many moms feel guilty that they feel this way, that they just can't pull themselves up out of this.
Right.
It's a self-perpetuating cycle, and not to mention the cortisol dumps, and the weight around the waist, or what I hear is, I have weight gain in weird places that used to not be there before. Get rid of this, type of thing. Kind of grab their spare tire around their tummy. And so I just wanted people to know that they're not alone. They're not crazy. No, you don't. A lot of my clients have been to what we'll call traditional doctors first to try to fix this. And I hear is, well, we just chase symptoms, and well, he says I have fibromyalgia and I need an antidepressant and everything's going to be fine. Well, no, it's not fine. So that's really kind of what I was hoping you would say, is all those things that you brought into it is what I hear and I see time and time again. And nutrition is the foundation for that. And it really helps, once you heal your gut, it's amazing how your life changes.
Right.
There's some things that have to take place around that. I won't keep you much longer, but you talked about, I have two more questions for you. The next one is, you alluded to it at the very beginning of our conversation. It also is your, what I call your branding statement or your differentiator on your website. And you talked about all three systems. Could you explain that just a little bit more of how you use that as a treatment philosophy?
Yeah, good question. So this kind of comes from my functional medicine training under Dan Kalish. Dr. Kalish kind of developed a systems-based approach where you look at these kind of three main body systems: neuroendocrine, the GI, the gut, and the detox pathways. And so instead of checking everything in the world and spending, $5,000 in labs, we typically check three main labs, and it gives us the big picture, some really good puzzle pieces to go after. And these three main body systems, once you get them balanced, most of the time, everything else kind of takes care of itself because of the one reality in that the body is always trying to heal. And so you're working with this intelligently designed system that is sometimes blocked or disrupted or poisoned sometimes, even by things we eat, things we're exposed to. And so it can't get back to that healing process. And so all we're really looking for, to simplify all of these labs and things we're looking for, like oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction and hormonal imbalances and nutrient deficiencies and methylation defects and all these things that we look for, we're basically just looking for things that block the body from doing its thing, doing its natural healing process. And so once you remove an infection or replenish some nutrient deficiencies, heal the gut, the body gets back into doing what it's supposed to be doing. And so the goal with this is not, if somebody comes in and they're on 7 pharmaceutical medications, the goal is not just to switch them to 7 supplements and, send them out the door and here and now we're doing natural medicine. The goal is to help repair the body so that it can do what it's supposed to do and not need all of these supplements, medications, necessarily anything. Just feed it with good nutrition, make sure the brain is feeding good thoughts in so that the body can be in and stay in a healing process and develop what's called some sort of reserve. You can call it a metabolic reserve, you can call it a nutrient reserve, you can call it an immune reserve, so that, because a lot of us live right on the edge of getting sick, of going into a migraine, of going into panic, anxiety. It's because we live right on that threshold and we don't have this reserve built up. And so building up some sort of metabolic reserve is kind of one of the big goals, so that, yeah, we're going to get sick in the future. The goal is not like to never get sick again and to never die. That's not real life. The goal is to where when we do get sick, our immune system's ready. We mount a response. We feel it for a couple of days. We get the fever. We get the body aches. We feel our body going to war. And then we fight it off in a few days. And then we're back at it.
Tell me what those three systems are specifically.
So, well, one of them is a combined system. So the neuroendocrine. Yep. So that system's kind of checked together. And then we look at the gastrointestinal tract, and then we look at the detox pathways. And so that's typically going to look like a really good gut test, which gives us a lot of information besides just, is there an infection here? It tells us if there's a bunch of inflammation. Are you making good digestive enzymes? Can you even break down that grass-fed burger that you just ate? Do you need some extra help there? Do you need something to help with fat malabsorption? Do you need something to kind of help? Have you had your gallbladder taken out? Is there something that we need to kind of help that emulsification process? And then we do an organic acid test, which is looking for, that's kind of in that window of detox, but that's looking at a lot of different ways the body detoxes. So methylation is kind of a term that's thrown around a lot in the functional medicine world, and that a lot of things that's happening millions of times in the body all the time. And so if the body's not methylating well, it's not detoxing well, your hormones are going to be backed up. Everything's just going to be backed up is a good way to kind of look at that when it comes to detoxing hormones, detoxing heavy metals, things that we're exposed to on a daily basis, even just driving in traffic and exhaust. I mean, these things, even if they're minimal, if you think of the body like a cup and you're able to detox, okay, you're going to be getting things dumped in that cup all the time. But if your filter is not filtering things well, then it's going to overflow. And that's usually when symptoms hit, is when your body can't keep up anymore when it comes to a detox issue. So neuroendocrine, GI, detox are kind of the three main body systems. And then once you get those puzzle pieces on the table, we address them in a pretty specific order as well, because they tend to go out of sync in a pretty specific order too.
Okay. Last question. Tell us about Juice with Jake.
Juice and Jake. I just left Juice Junkies. So we have an awesome little spot right around the corner from the clinic called Juice Junkies. And we meet, I think there's a downtown location too. This is their Keller location up here, but
also.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic spot because it's close to the clinic. We can go there, and I don't have to worry about anything that people order that's going to be bad for us or make somebody sick. So, but I have that as a way where people can kind of meet us and also hear the approach similar to this, where they kind of accept it's really nice because it's usually one-on-one, and I get to hear exactly what someone is going through, what's been tried, what hasn't been tried, and then tell them, hey, without any type of commitment, hey, here's what, if you came to see us, here's what I would do. And then I usually send them home with an email with, here's my recommendations to start with. If you come see us, great. Here's how you do it. If not, best of luck to you. If all these things that I recommend, you feel better, then awesome. Shoot me an email and tell me what worked the best for you. So it's a fun way to kind of get out of the office, go sit and have a good, buy somebody a juice or a smoothie or whatever they want, and just kind of sit and talk for 20 minutes or so and kind of hear them out and then introduce them to what we do. And they usually have questions because not everybody, if people find us by Googling functional medicine, I know that they know what we do to a certain degree. Right. If they find us by Googling antibiotic or probiotic drink, then I know that maybe they don't know a lot about what we do. Maybe they just have a very cursory idea of alternative functional medicine. So then they have a lot of questions.
So how do they sign up for it?
So they can just go to our website. There's a form that can be filled out. It's right on the homepage, and they just put their name, email address. Usually Sammy here in the office calls them that day or the next day and gets them on the schedule, and we meet over there at Juice Junkies. And we do that same thing. If somebody's a little too far away, we'll do it on the phone if they can't really come up to this area, because I wish I could drive down to downtown Fort Worth and meet people, but it's just traffic and 35. It's hard to get down there. Yeah, gosh.
And how do they contact you? So give us your contact information, website, phone number, those types of things.
Awesome. So the website is the name of our practice. It's Stewarding Life Wellness. And it's stewarding. It's like a steward, STEWARD. So stewardinglifewellness.com. Our number here is 682-593-7223. And that's the clinic number. The email address that's on the website that I think if they fill out a form, it'll come to me as well, is just info at stewardinglifewellness.com too. So they can kind of call us or send us a message through the website or email me directly. So all of those things will get to us. And we usually get back to people within a couple of days. So we're not too bad at getting back to people.
You know what I like is you take a very non-scary approach. You take a very approachable approach to people's health and medicine, and it's a conversation instead of, you don't talk at people. It's a conversation. That's what I.
It has to be. And by the time people find me, usually they're fed up of the talk out approach, and they're ready to have a team approach, and nobody knows their body like they know their own body. And so I see myself as a consultant. I'm coming alongside someone they're their biggest health advocate. I'm coming alongside them to offer them some tools to kind of help in that process. Let's do some good testing. Let's talk about protocols. Let's talk about sometimes helping them uncover some hidden things, like they didn't realize that their war against the reality of traffic every day going to and from work is making them sick. Like, we got to get to a place where we kind of get to where that's not something we fight against. It's just, it is what it is. Come up with a different plan or be okay with it. And so sometimes talking through that, people realize really quickly, like, oh, this could be making me sick. Yeah. That could be the biggest driver.
I know here at Savor, we love working with providers just like you, because we really partner well with you. And there are a few other providers that do similar what you do. And the team approach that we take is very comprehensive, because we're eyes on the client when they're not with you. We're helping their nutrition. We make their nutrition very easy by doing the customized prepared meals according to the dietary guidelines that you've laid out for them. So it's a great team approach.
It's an awesome team approach. Yeah, I wish I could have you on every single patient.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and thank you for giving us my contact information to be on today. And I'm sure that all the listeners and the readers and the posters and the bloggers and all the other people will love listening to this.